Fusion Mobile, quality e-learning experience on the go.
We are talking about types of environment. We look at the physical environment. What is physical environment? If environment is simply defined as our surrounding. We discuss what? We discuss rocks, we discuss mountain, we discuss plateau. All these are the component or the constituent of what form physical. What we can see, what we can feel, what we can touch. These are what we call the physical environment. What of social environment? We talk about the school around us. We talk about the hospital. These are social environment. Then we talk about the cultural environment. When we are talking about the cultural environment, we talk about the markets. We talk about the traditional palace. We talk about the town hall meeting. All these form our environment because they are things that surround us. It can either be physical, social, or cultural environment. Now, let's move ahead to look at the components of environment. When we talk about component, the component environment is divided into two. We have biotic and abiotic environment. Biotic means the active part, the live part of environment, while abiotic is the inactive part, that is the non-living things part of environment. And when you talk about biotic part is categorized into three. We have the producer, the biotic, that is the life. We have plants that produce, manufacture food for themselves. We call them the producer. Then within the biotic component, we have consumer. These cannot produce. What they do is that they depend on the consumer they depend on the producer to consume what the producer produced. That we call them the what? The consumer. Then we have the decomposer. This part of biotic environment, what do? They believe that producer will produce. They believe that consumer will consume. But what happened to them? When producer and consumer die, what happened to their body? They decompose. So they are the part of the biotic environment that help to decompose both the producer and consumer. And what is the effect? They add nutrient to the soil so that producer can make use of that nutrient to what? To produce more for the consumer to consume. And the consumer will consume more and die. Then the decomposer will decompose the soul, the body, and give it back to what? To producer as a nutrient. So it go in a cyclic form. You have a producer here. Producer will produce. What happened? It will give it to consumer. Consumer will consume. What happened? Consumer will die. The decomposer will decompose the body, form a nutrient, and give it back to what? And give it back to producer. That is how we are talking. The biotic part of component of environment is. Then when we talk about abiotic, number one, we talk about the climate. These are the non-living part of the environment. Then number two, we talk about edaphic. When we are talking about edaphic, we are talking about soil. Soil is a non-living, but the form component of environment under abiotic. So when we are talking about component of environment, we are talking about two things. Number one, biotic. Number two, what? Abiotic. Biotic, producer, consumer, decomposer. So once you have life within environment, you fall under these three. It's either you are a producer, or you are a consumer, or you are a decomposer. There are some plants that produce food for themselves. The green plant, they manufacture food for us to eat, and that is a photosynthesis. You know, these type of plants, they are called the autotroph, the autotrophic plants. They are part of a biotic environment. There are plants, animals that cannot produce. What do? They consume what the producer produce. Then there are part of biotic environment that can neither produce nor consume. What they depend is they are waiting for the consumer to die so that they can act on the body, decompose, and add nutrient to the soil and give it back to producer. So it is a continuous. Now, after that, we look at the domain of the environment. It's the same thing when we're discussing the structure of the earth. We say that the earth is divided into two structures. We have the outer structure and we have the inner structure. The outer structure, we have the spheres. The same thing here, we have the lithosphere, the hydrosphere, the atmosphere, the biosphere. It's the same thing. So when we are talking about the domain of the environment, we talk about the lithosphere, the solid parts of the environment. We have the hydrosphere, the part of the atmosphere, the environment that is made up of what? Of water. Then we have the atmosphere, the part of the environment that is made up of air and gases. Then we have the biosphere, that is the part of the environment that is occupied by life, either man, animals, or even plants. So these are the domain. We have discussed this one extensively when we're looking at the structure of the earth. Now, let's look at the problem of environment. What are the problems of environment? You see, environmental issue is one of the topical issues today, both at national and international border. People are talking about environment. We are talking about climate change. We are talking about environmental pollution. We are talking about rising in temperature every day. Now, what are the problems of environment? Confronting, facing environment. And as a student of geography, what can you do to ameliorate? What can you do to reduce or to solve this problem? Let's look at problem number one. We talk about pollution, environmental pollution. Environmental pollution can be in different forms. Pollution from industry, industrial pollution. Pollution from when we talk about pollution from the industry, number one, affect the environment. Pollution from the cars that we drive on the road. Some of them, they bring out exhaust that are not healthy to the environment. Then we have effluent discharge from industry. Some of us, some industry, after their wastewater, that is what we call effluent, they discharge it into the environment. As a student, some of us, we use outdated computer at home. What do? We take them to the dustbin and dump them. It's a problem to the environment because those appliances that we do not use them again, there is a proper way of disposing them. If we dispose them indiscriminately into the environment, it will pollute. I think we had some cases in Lagos some time ago when a school where some students came to school in the morning, they went to the lab to carry out some experiment, but they discovered that, before they know, they started falling down. After much discovery, they now find out that an industry very close to their school, discharge an obnoxious gas into the environment the previous night. And these innocent students, what do when they came in the morning? They didn't know. They inhaled this. It was the intervention of God. and the government of the authority of the school that rushed them to the nearby hospital. If not, only God knows what would have happened to those innocent students. That is what we are saying about the pollution of the environment. What are the effects of it when you pollute the environment? Do you know that once you discharge anything into the environment, you are damaging the environment, number one. We are talking about the domain of the environment now. If you discharge any harmful substance into the environment, it may damage the atmosphere, it may damage the hydrosphere, and even the lithosphere. If you damage the lithosphere, the ability for farming that is taking place on the lithosphere to produce enough food will not be there, because the land would have been polluted. And what of the atmosphere? If you discharge obnoxious gases into the atmosphere, some gases contain CFCs, that is chlorofluorocarbon. And what is the effect of it? It can perforate what we call the ozone layer. Once we discharge this into the atmosphere, it can perforate this ozone layer. What is ozone layer? Ozone layer is like an umbrella protecting the earth from the direct heating of the sun. But by the time we begin to discharge these chemicals into the atmosphere, it can damage this protector called ozone layer, thereby forcing the direct heating of the sun onto the atmosphere, and you know what it will cause. Then number two, we have global warming. What is global warming? Global warming can be defined as the significant increment in the temperature and climate on a yearly basis. Temperature begin to rise, that is what global warming can lead to, what we call climate change. Now, what is the effect of global warming? We have some oceans that 90% of their water is in form of what? Of ice. Is blocked because they are located very close to the polar region. But when the temperature began to rise, those water that are in form of ice begin to melt. And once they melt, they add water to the ocean body. And what happened? The ocean water begin to overflow its banks. And the result is the flooding and what have you that we are seeing today. Then we have deforestation. Deforestation is illegal cutting down of trees. When you have a tree in your compound, the normal thing to do, even if you want to cut it down legal, for a genuine reason, in an advanced environment, in an orderly environment, you go to the government and take permission that you are going to cut down that trees. And what will they do? They will give you the species of that tree. You have to plant it, water it, bring it to a certain age before you can cut down that one. But today in our environment, we cut down trees indiscriminately. And what you are doing is that you are exposing the sun, the ground, that is the lithosphere, to excess heat from the sun. And what happens if that thing, if you expose the soil, it will lead to what we call it will lead to escape of water, that is evapotranspiration. It will lead to excess of water uptake from the soil, and once that one happens, it will cause what we call aridity. The soil will become so dry because there is no vegetation cover to protect this soil from excess solar radiation again. Then we have desert encroachment. This one is also a problem of environment. What we mean by desert encroachment is the encroachment of desert-like activities inland. in the late 80s, we're told that, you know, if you go to Kano, you can find, you know, some relative vegetation, even though it's Sudan savanna. But today, part of Kano has been engulfed by Sahel savanna. That is, every year we were told that about 6.5% of desert-like activities encroached into the country. Because of what? Because of cutting down of trees and other activities. Then we have soil erosion. If you cut down trees, you expose your soil to direct heating of the sun and also to erosion. And in places like the eastern part of Nigeria, we have, you know, prevalence, perennial cases of erosion, either gully erosion or any type of erosion that you can. These are the problems that we have threatening our environment today. And as a student of geography, we can do a lot to step down these problems. We can do a lot. The best thing you can do is what we are doing now. The best way to control environmental problem is through environmental education. Educate the young ones, educate the young mind, let them know that what some of them are doing affect environment. By the time you begin to do that, you go home, you disseminate the news to other people around. If somebody take pure water, throw it, or dump something in a gutter, you say, this thing you are doing, you are polluting the environment. So we have discussed what environment is. We say that environment is our surrounding. Look at the types of environment, the physical environment, social environment, and cultural environment. Then we look at the component of environment, divided into two. We have biotic and abiotic. Biotic means life, and the life portion of the environment contains producer, consumer, and decomposer. Then we have abiotic, that is non-living. We have the climate and edaphic. Edaphic means what? Soil. Then we look at the domains of environment. We talk about lithosphere, hydrosphere, atmosphere, biosphere. Lithosphere is sphere that is occupied by the solid parts of the environment. Hydro means water. Atmo means what? Air and gases. While bio means life. Then we look at the problems threatening our environment. Number one, we have environmental pollution. Number two, we have global warming. Number three, we have deforestation. Number four, we have desert encroachment. Number five, we have soil erosion. All these are the problems confronting the environment. And as an environmental, as a geographer, we can do a lot to do what? To control this problem in our own little corner. That this problem can either be eradicated or be mitigated. So this has taken us to importance of environment to man. Importance of environment to man. I told us, when you are talking about importance of environment to man, there is something you must know. You don't even go anywhere. Go to the domain of the environment and look at, when we're talking about the structure of the earth, we talk about the outer structure, where we have this lithosphere, hydrosphere, atmosphere, and biosphere. I did say that when you are talking about importance, what are the importance of lithosphere to man? Lithosphere is what? Is the solid portion of the earth where activities take place, where farming take place, where cultivation take place. So the building take place on the lithosphere. So you can give us that one as one of the importance of environment. When you talk about hydro means water bodies. What happens here? We can use water to generate electricity. We can use water for domestic purpose. We can use water for industrial purpose. We can use water for agricultural purpose, that is irrigation. Then you talk about atmosphere. where we have the gases and the this air, the sphere that is made up of gases or contain gases and air. We have many important gases in the atmosphere. That what of the oxygen and the carbon dioxide that we breathe in and breathe out? Where do we get them from? The nitrate and other, atmospheric gases that plants use in order to manufacture their own food for themselves and also extend the food to us. Where do they get the food from? The gases is from the atmosphere. Now you talk about bio. Bio means life. We talk about both human beings, both animals, both plants, and even microorganisms that form this sphere. We look at their importance from lithosphere to hydrosphere to atmosphere to biosphere. When you combine them together, it will give us the importance of of environment to man. So with this, we have treated what environment is all about. This will now take us to another aspect of geography which is very, very interesting.